Welcome to the Growth Whisperers Podcast, where everything we talk about is building enduring great companies, or at least about building enduring great companies and helping people to build enduring great companies. And, Brad and I are both very passionate about helping companies to do this. We've spent a huge chunk of our lives helping companies to scale and grow and build enduring great companies. And when things tend to go the opposite way, and not continue to build and not to be enduring or to become mediocre, we get a little fired up about it. We're kind of passionate about this. So anyways, welcome to the show. I'm Kevin Lawrence here today with Brad Giles, as I am every single week. Brad, how are you doing today?
Excellent. Very, very good. Thank you. Things are good here. We are well. I tell you, we're very lucky over here. We still haven't gone into lockdown. The rest of Australia has been in lockdown. Well, Sydney has for 12 weeks at this point of recording. It's a challenging situation. So we're very, very blessed where we are.
Yep. Awesome. Yep. Same here. I was down in the US last week, and it's interesting seeing, down there, even how serious they are about not lockdown, but masks everywhere, being very careful. Obviously on airplanes, people are extremely careful, but as this thing is still kind of nipping at our heels and causing some havoc.
Yeah.
Another guy I know, I call him a good friend. I just saw on Facebook a picture of him with the ventilator on and all that other stuff. Like, he's fighting for his life. He's getting better and he'll be fine, but it's some serious stuff still happening in the world. All right, so Brad, what's your word of the day today?
Supply chain issues. So let me very, very quickly explain that. Many places that you go to now are talking about we are missing this, or we haven't got that, or we can't get this in time. Supply chain issues are just everywhere. And that comes back to people just, it's a fascinating dig when you dig in to understand why do we have supply chain issues at the moment. And it really all comes back to the inappropriate implementation of lean. So lean was pioneered by Toyota, the Toyota way. We're familiar with that kind of stuff. But Toyota are actually one of the few companies that have good supply at the moment because they've done their system the right way. But others have simply tried to cut costs. So that's quite a lot, but yes. Supply chain issues.
I did hear, Brad, and we talked about that before, I did hear Toyota actually got hit in the last month themselves.
Yeah.
That's something that actually their supply chain finally caught up with them, and they had some issues like some of the other automobile manufacturers have. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, overdoing the lean thing and being lean on the wrong things. So my word of the day is demand. And having a conversation with some people over the weekend, and and looking at managing the supply demand curve. Economics is really based on supply demand in a lot of cases. And right now, there's incredible demand for people to work, and limited supply for lots of companies in lots of roles, particularly in North America. I hear some in other countries, but I hear a lot of it in North America. And, to be able to manage it, and we're having a lot of conversations about, how do you, deal with this extra demand that the business has and limited supply of workers or people to do the work. It's like a double challenge, which is making it really interesting for a lot of people. Very, very interesting for a lot of people. So supply chain and demand, putting more demands on the supply chain, which is actually kind of what's happening today. So what are we digging into today, Brad? What is our focus?
So now this week, we're talking about a concept from your book, Your Oxygen Mask First. And the issue is eliminating your emotionally taxing issues, or put another way, licking your toads. So Kevin, tell us, what does it mean to lick your toads?
Yeah, and it's not what they're known to do down in your country, where you guys have some toads that have some psychedelic qualities, and it's a great way to have a little party. That's
Mhm.
not what we're talking. These aren't party toads we're talking about. It's a story in your oxygen mask first, and it relates to things that you don't want to do. Often they're low value, we'll call them loose ends, lingering tasks, just stuff that mentally you see it, but you just don't get to it. And I'll give you an example. I used to work with a guy named Art. I used to work in an auto shop as a kid, and Art was a mechanic there, a good mechanic. And every day at the end of the day, Art would pull up to the air hose at the shop outside the mechanic shop and pump up his tire. And one day, I go, well, Art, why don't you just fix the tire? Obviously, you've got a leak, and you work here in the shop, and you can just bring it in and fix it before work or after work at lunch. And he goes, but Kevin, it's only flat on the bottom. Like, what are you talking about? Anyways, that was his way of being funny about it. But the thing is, every day he would put air in his darn tire, and it just burns up mental bandwidth. And maybe he didn't think about it a lot, or maybe he did. And so the rule of thumb is there's things that you've thought about doing, and you've thought about it at least 3 or 4 times, but it just doesn't happen. It's almost like it's something that gets procrastinated, and it starts to weigh on you. And before you know it, many people have 100 or 200 of these, and it's like a mountain of weight on your shoulders. And they're stupid little things like air in your tire, or maybe it's getting to the dentist, or fixing a scratch on your car, or a squeaky door. I've got the door behind me that I need to do some adjustment on the track, because if you go too far, it kind of falls off the track. It needs a
Mhm.
little pin at the end so it won't come off. Little things that really, in the big picture, these aren't going to impact you by $1 million. They don't have massive strategic value, but they create mental clutter and emotional drain and distraction for you. And we all have them when we all do them. But this chapter in the book is, and this principle is about staying on top of all that mental clutter and drain, so you can stay focused on what matters most.
So is it a bit like having a really long to-do list?
It is, but a lot of these things don't even make it on the to-do. It's a mental to-do list, usually in the back of your brain, that haunts you every time you see it, makes you feel guilty and burdens you. And it's interesting. I've seen serious executives getting taken down by their own toads.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
just it gets them, and it just gets them in terms of just it's a burden. It's almost like that show Hoarders. Have you ever seen that? And
Yep.
it's an American show where people's houses just get full of all this stuff, and they can't live anymore, but they can't get rid of the stuff. And it's in a mental or emotional version of the same. You get burdened by these things, and it's a lot of weight and pressure, and slows down your system, and you waste an incredible amount of time thinking about them.
Yeah. So in a computer, you've got random access memory and read-only memory. So that is like the processor, and then the kind of the memory that you access from. So the processing power is about the short-term ability to deal with multiple things simultaneously. And
Yep.
and so what we're saying is you want to free up your minds, or maintain the freedom of your mind's processing power, the RAM.
Yes, exactly. You want to get the mental clutter out so there's more space. It's almost like if you take a snow globe and you see like a tourist place, a snow globe, and you shake it up, and there's all these things floating around. When it settles, there's this clarity and a clear picture. What these things become is like a snow globe with all this stuff there, and it confuses your thinking, drains your energy, and just generally, isn't good. It's like trying to do your job with 14 screaming, yelling kids behind you,
Yeah.
except for that they're quiet, but it has the same pull, and we don't notice the sort of the low level stress that it creates. And it can create a ton of stress, especially for things that have a strong emotional component to them, where that can really affect you. But the general type can just, yeah, they can burn you down. So, we got kind of a checklist in the chapter, and some questions I'll just run through that you can think about if this is important for you. But one, Just this conversation already is making you nervous or uncomfortable because you're starting to think of things flashing through your head that you need to do. Second, it's not unusual for to-dos to kick around for a month or more. You just can't keep up with it. And by the way, this is not about judging you for not getting it done. Often we need a different approach and a different system to keep ahead of these things. Otherwise, if you had a good system, they'd already be done. Certain lingering to-dos can cause you a lot of frustration, anxiety, maybe panic attacks. Your heart can skip a beat because they stress you out. It's almost like you avoid them, but they become like a monster chasing you. And then finally, people repeatedly follow up on you and ask you to do stuff that you said you would do, but you don't. And your lack of follow through is obvious. And because it's not just the one thing, there's probably 20 or 30 things. So basically, people end up chasing you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what is it that we can do about these things?
Well, first you got to realize the mental toll that it has. That's the piece. So when we do workshops just on this, we get people to make a list of all those lingering loose ends, and we give 25, 30 different prompts, and we would go through your car, something that's not right on your car or whatever your mode of transport is. Anything to do with a dentist, a doctor, a chiropractor, anything to do with medical or physical related things that you have borrowed from people and maybe not returned, things that maybe others have borrowed from you that you really want back, legal things, open legal pieces. Maybe it's a will or something along a will, the power of attorney. Maybe it's something to do with your family members or parents in some sort of administration. One person, they hadn't finished and put the headstone on the mother's burial plot, things like that. Filing of taxes or government related things to do with conflicts, right? Things to do with when a relationship is broken down and going and cleaning it up. Things around your house, could be in your yard or your bathroom or your kitchen. It could be to do with your computer and something that doesn't work right, or your phone and you need to get a better phone case or a mount for your vehicle. Like, you can go on and on and on about just maybe you need to clean out your garage or your attic or whatever it is. Because it's all these little, when you have a great busy life and career, all these little things. So basically, people start to brainstorm a list. Most times people will have 50, 100 plus of these little things. And so the first thing is to do that. Second thing is to look at, approach them. And then third is ongoing maintenance. So in the book, what we've developed, and in the workshop we did for years, and this lick the toads, because there's a story, you can read about it in the book, but people remember it 20 years ago. I had a conversation this week, a guy named Mark, that I knew from 25 years ago. He was in one of the first programs we did when I started the firm, with a great mentor of mine, Warren Morgan. And Mark was, he's actually knows an executive that we work with. I was on a call with the executive, said, "Hey, I want you to say hi to someone." I got to talk to Mark. And what had happened is, the executive we work with was talking about licking the toads. And he goes, "Lick the toads? How do you know about that?" And they made the connection that they both knew me. It was quite funny. And that was literally from 25 years ago. So we break it down into kind of 5 different strategies. And all these basically are cleaning up procrastination. And I'll go through one, Brad, and you can go through the others if you want to jump in. But this is stuff that I've spent a lot of time talking and writing about. But the basic is just to do it, is to decide. And these are the ones where there's usually some emotional friction and you just got to get it done. Now, it could be making that dentist appointment. It could be talking to your boss or talking to an employee, like scheduling. Just do that nasty thing. And we recommend that you do it first thing every morning. Don't leave it till the end, because it'll burden you all day. It gives you a burst of energy when you get these things done, because it takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. So first thing is, and this is the basic one, it's not the most powerful one, because these things you don't like to do anyways. But the basic is do it, actually just get it done, get it first thing in the morning, so then you can free up the rest of your day.
Yeah. And then the next one, don't do it. Say no to the person who requested it if it's simply not yours to do. So we did an episode maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago about the power and importance of saying no, and being able to know that no is an option, to be aware that no is an option. Sometimes you just don't need to say yes, and this is building up it's building up the burden on your memory. It's building up the problems.
It is, and it's a hard one, especially if you've already said yes. Like, I've gotten better over the years of not saying yes in the moment on things and taking time, especially when I know I probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
But this is when you've probably already said yes, is going back and essentially changing your mind and saying no, and saying, I'm not going to be able to do this, or I'm not going to be able to do this for a few months, or I really think you should get someone else, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because they might have even forgot that they asked you to do it, but so that get it off your plate. The next one is my favorite. It's to delegate it. And I was having a conversation with a friend today, and I was helping them pull a boat out of the lake, and so that it can get winterized and stored and all this stuff. We're talking about it. And one of the things I was saying is that, I'm fine helping people do that stuff, but I got a guy or a girl to do all of those things. Like, I have 50 different people I can text message and get stuff done. And by nature, pulling a boat in and out of the lake is not like incredibly hard, but I don't like doing those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I have found a way to delegate almost every single thing in my world, unless I really enjoy doing it. For example, on the delegating it, another good friend of mine found a place up here in the Okanagan where we are, called Aqua. And it's a place you could take your boat, and it's a valet service. You tell them the time you want it, you show up, you jump in, they drop you into the water, a little special forklift thing, and drop you down in the water. And when you come back in, you jump out, they fill it with gas, they clean it, they put the top back on it, they take care of every single thing, including, giving you a bag of ice when you want to go out.
Yeah.
And it's looking for ways for the things that you don't want to have to deal with, like maintaining a boat or any of that kind of stuff. Who else would do it? Because basically everything that you don't want to do, somebody else loves to do. But people get caught in it, and obviously it costs money, but otherwise it costs time.
The hard one here is the trap that so many people fall into, being, oh, look, it's just easier if I do it. It's just easier if I do it. I've got to fix up the garden or take the boat out of the water or whatever. And it requires training and bandwidth, and it's just easier if I do it.
Yeah, and it is if you only had to do it once in your life. But the flower beds need to be done ongoing forever. Boats need to be put in and out of water and maintained and serviced and cleaned forever. Teeth need to be done by the dentist forever. Everything that, unless it brings joy to your world, why would you burden yourself unless it's critical, or you're doing it as a connection point with other people, or teaching your children a lesson of some sort of thing for them. So basically everything in the world can be delegated. And the rule of thumb is, if you generally put it off, it's an indicator you don't like it.
Yeah.
Find somebody that does everything. And because for me, there's a lot of stuff I don't like to do. You just got to find those reliable people that can do it. So it's a decision to find someone that will, and you can always find someone, no matter what it happens to be, including, cleaning up after your dog, or taking your dog for a walk, or whatever the heck it happens to be. You can always find someone that will do anything. So that is one of the most powerful ones, is to take your pain and make it someone else's joy. And that's the ideal. The other piece of it is to delete it, and this is stuff that you put on your own to-do list. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna repaint my house, or I'm gonna take art lessons, or I'm gonna become a yoga master, whatever it happens to be. It's just to realize you had a moment of inspiration and get it out of your mind. And this could be at work or it could be in business, but just some ideas are just for the moment. They aren't meant to be, and find ways to just really, let them go. And I do this regularly because I get a lot of really good ideas. Unfortunately, when you decide you're going to do something, maybe you go buy the supplies for the project or the hobby or whatever it is, and you don't do it. Guilt kicks in like crazy. So
Yeah.
it's basically just get it out of your system and off your mind, and treat it as a little point of inspiration.
And being okay with that. You do not need, just because it made its way onto a to-do list or even a mental only to-do list, you do not need to do it. It's like, I'm not going to do that. And if it comes up again in the future as this is something that I really want to do and the situation is different, then maybe. But saying, just letting it go can be powerful. What do we got next?
It is. And finally is date it. Just decide and we do this a lot in our strat planning sessions. It's not for this year. Let's put it off to the next. Let's consider this in 2022. You want to do a renovation at your house, just maybe you're not going to put it off and say, it's not putting off. It's like consciously decide, no more thought process. We'll think about it again in June of 2022 or whatever, time frame it is, but just push it off. If someone wants you to be on a board and you don't want to do it, say not now, but I'll reconsider it in 2023. Whatever it happens to be, don't let it drag and slide to a future date. Actually formally push it to a future date.
Yeah, because maybe things will change, but maybe they won't. But that means that it doesn't consume your bandwidth, that your mental bandwidth in the meantime. You can say, talk to me again then, I'll worry about it, and we'll have that discussion then rather than now. So what's the key point here that you're trying to make?
Is that all of these little things consume a lot more energy than you think. It creates a lot more friction in your system, a lot more distraction and stress. Getting them out of the way. And it's very much like that Zen philosophy of keeping your environment clean and clear, right? So that you can focus and your whole system can kind of calm down again, versus having, 47 screaming children behind you constantly that you don't even realize are there.
So
it's
this clutter, it's mental
clutter.
This mental clutter is preventing you from, I guess, enjoying your best life.
Exactly. Yep. And being the most present and productive person that you can.
Awesome.
So that's it. So that's licking your toads.
Awesome. Do you want to take us through them again as a quick review?
For sure. The first thing is make a master list of them and stay on them. And the best advice is, lick the nastiest one you have first thing every morning. Like one, it's like a toad a day keeps the doctor away, right? And first of all is to just do it, like we've talked about. Don't do it and just say no to the person. Like go back and say no and uncommit. Delegate it, which is the best one. Find people that love doing what you loathe. Delete it. If it's a personal project and you even didn't commit to someone else, just decide you're not going to do it and then date it. Deal with it in the future. But not let it drag, but consciously push it to a future date.
Awesome.
So hope my challenge is to go make your list and just start picking them off one at a time and get them out. And as you get going with this, you might find it's a valuable thing to do with your team as well. People have like Toads days, right? Like a Tuesday. Toads days where people once a month will just make a list of them and get cleaned up. Kind of like a little bit of a mental spring cleaning. It's a great thing to do. Again, like most powerful things, not rocket science, but it works.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kevin. That's a great insight into one of the key concepts in your book, but evidently from many, many years ago as well, that served you well. Good to know. Good to know. So if you'd like to learn more about the toads concept, you can read Kevin's book, Your Oxygen Mask First. And obviously you can go to Kevin's website, which is lawrenceandco.com. If you'd like to learn more about myself, Brad, you can go to evolutionpartners.com.au. I do hope that you've enjoyed learning about licking your toads today. And we do hope that we can catch up with you next week on the Growth Whisperers. Have a great week.